Welcome, my friends, to Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat, the podcast that never ends, where we gather our clan and talk about the peace and love in our lives, the difficulties along the journey, and how we rise up from them. We will experience a little thing I call Kluberty together, and by the end of the show, we're going to find our sweet spot. I'm Uncle Dave, and our transformation starts right here. Hey now, and how are you doing? Just want to welcome you to the next episode of Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat. Today's guest is we're going to call him Mr. Weirdo, and we'll have a story behind that as well. But Rasheed Hooda. So, Rasheed, how you doing this morning?
I am blessed. I am blessed as always. Thank you for asking.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So because I called you Mr. Weirdo, I want to at least make sure my audience doesn't know that I'm going to be picking on my guest, because I don't. And I'm very excited for today's conversation. Could you explain to us, what do you mean by Mr. Weirdo and embracing your weirdo?
Well, it all started out back in 1985, and I didn't even know that it was starting back then. But actually, it was 1984. I was a counselor at a summer camp in Cleveland, Ohio. I was living in Chicago at the time, and after the camp was over, we were heading home. One of the fellow counselor, a young lady that I had met there, was flying to Vancouver where she lived, and she had a change of airplane in Chicago. So we both flew together from Cleveland to Chicago, and that was probably the first time we really had an opportunity to talk to each other in any meaningful way. Because the summer camp, you've done summer camps, it's crazy. Time goes. So we were talking and just kind of getting to know each other. And somewhere in the conversation, and I don't remember what the conversation was about, I said, I'm kind of weird like that. And we both laughed about it, and I didn't think anything of it. But next year on my birthday, I get a birthday card. Well, it wasn't really a birthday card. It was just a card with a cartoon of a group of green people standing on the left side, and a purple guy standing by himself on the other side. And the caption on the card said, if the being fails to keep pace with its contemporaries, it is because he hears a different drummer. And I opened the card, and inside it said, either that or he's a weirdo. And so it was just like, okay, she remembered. And that was that. And then fast forward 12 years, and I was doing a presentation at a network marketing opportunity, and I was the opening speaker, and I was asked to write an introduction, which I did, and handed it to the hostess, who at first told me she can't read that. And I insisted that she did, because that would set up my, presentation that I was going to do. And so she did, reluctantly, apologizing to the audiences all the time, saying, he made me read this. What the introduction said was, our first speaker this morning is a man of many unusual characteristics. Unusual may not be the right word. Weird is more like it. Not only is he weird, he takes pride in the fact that he is weird. Now, if that's not weird, I don't know what weird is. So please help me welcome Mr. Weirdo.
Gotcha.
So that's where Mr. Weirdo came into existence, and I've been hanging with that moniker for the last 25 years. And one thing that I want to clarify is most people put down Mr. You'll never find me there that way. You have to spell out the word Mr. It's MISTERWEIRDO. Whether you put a space between it or not is irrelevant, but spelling out Mr. is important. And you can Google me and you'll find a few hits there.
All right, awesome. So how do you embrace your inner weirdo currently? Because obviously you're not a teenager anymore, neither am I, but I still go by some of my teenage names. What's your inner weirdo? How do you embrace that?
Well, my inner weirdo, it took me a long time to find, and initially I found it as a rebel. Uh, I was rebellious from my teenage years. I didn't really get rebellious until the last couple of years of my high school when I grew up in India and Pakistan, and back there they don't call it high school. They have a different system. You have primary school, which goes from 1 to 5, and then you have secondary school that goes from 5 to 10, and then you have intermediate college, which is grade 11th and 12th, which is where you're being prepared to go to college. So you don't have all the restrictions of the primary and secondary school, but you don't have the total freedom of being a college. It's kind of in between there. And in those last 2 years, the little freedom that I found, I took it to the extremes. And fortunately, the way our system worked back home, class attendance did not count for a whole lot. Your final exam counted for everything. But in order to get to your final exams, you had to get your teachers to sign on saying he's capable of taking the exam and passing it. Some of my teachers laughed when they had to sign me off because they looked at their roll call, and I was absent about 87% of the time from my classes. So it was my resistance and reluctant and rebellious nature, and I know you love ours.
I do love my R's.
That where my weirdo first came out, and then when I was 19, I came to the United States and went to college here, and so it was kind of a culture shock. It was a change of attitude at that point. I was a little bit rebellious to start with, and then when I came here, I found that what I was told about what the Western culture is was not exactly what I found. The picture that we were painted, like pictures over here are painted about our culture, is that they're evil. And I found that people aren't evil. They just do things differently than we did, but overall, they're people. They're good-hearted folks.
That's what we have to learn the most about it. Is we might be all authentic and we might be different, but we're all people. One of my best friends in the world, Shahan Islam, I love mentioning him because he grew up in Bangladesh, and he's taught me so much about the community and the culture, and he speaks a number of languages. He's actually fluent in German, and when I'm talking to him, and he goes, well, I know German. I'm like, I didn't realize that, but and then he's like, gives me a whole thing. That's why we need to know each other better as human beings, and
yes.
You don't know what you don't know, but you also don't know what the other people, no matter where you are in the world, you might have different cultures and different belief systems, but at the end of the day, we want the same things. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree 100%. At the end of the day, we all want to be loved, liked, and appreciated for who we are. Mm-hmm. And that's the bottom line. That's the bottom line, brother.
Yep. No, exactly. I so appreciate that. Because that's really what it comes down to is how we appreciate all the things in our life, that gratitude. So what are some of the things that bring you peace and love and gratitude as you're embracing your weirdo? And it's really not weirdo, right? It's really just who you are and embracing your authenticity. Yeah,
exactly. And see, my son has a saying that everybody is unique. No big deal. But you gotta be weird to matter. And he says, if you're not weird, there's something wrong with you. So when I say the word weird, I don't mean it in a derogatory way. I mean it in taking pride ways. So
Sure.
I'm proud to be a weirdo. What brings me peace and well, I grew up in a religious family, and later on, what I learned in life was there's a difference between being religious and being spiritual.
Mm.
Uh, you can belong to different religions, but if you're not spiritual in your nature, you'll be fighting with each other, trying to prove my religion is the only path to salvation.
Yep.
Uh, so, what keeps me peaceful and centered is knowing that um, I was having a discussion with a fellow worker about his faith and my faith, and we were talking, and he was trying to tell me what my faith was, insisting upon his understanding of what my faith is. And I tried to explain to him uh, the way I interpreted my faith.
Mm-hmm.
And he got frustrated and goes, "Oh, you're nothing but a effing humanist."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Yeah, I'm a humanist.
We all should be, right?
That's what my faith is.
Right.
That's what my faith teaches, that God sent a messenger to every nation in the world. So everybody has the same message. They just live it differently. They understand it differently. And unfortunately, along the way, organized religion decided that's the only way to do it, or everything else is wrong." And
Well,
it's unfortunate.
that's the powerful point, right? Isn't that the powerful point? Is that everybody's perspective is different. Even if we're experiencing the same thing at the same time, we could still have a different filter, but based on everything else. That's a great way of looking at it. That each person is a messenger from God. Most of us won't disagree with that statement. You know, some people might because they're atheists, and I respect that. But if you believe you're a gift from God, and everybody's a gift from God, it's what you do with it and your beliefs. We're so stuck in our beliefs that really then that's where the troubles begin. Is if I'm so stuck in my beliefs that I won't allow you to believe anything other than what I say, that's a big challenge. How do you overcome some things that, obviously you've met some challenges along your way?
Yes. What I found is by just being who I am, people get to know me. Allow people to know who I am, and the way I live is who I am. And when I explain to them that the way I live is based on my spiritual thinking, people would say, "Okay, yeah, we have differences of faith, but I like you as a person," and so that becomes a secondary issue in our relationship. Who we are is becomes more important and more of primal nature than what brand of religion that we follow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all about the person, because that's the old story about the person who goes to church every Sunday, but the rest of the week they do whatever they need to do, and it goes that with any religion. So for Judaism on Saturday, if you could go to temple every Saturday, but if the rest of the week you're living a life of not following those tenets, it doesn't matter that you go on Saturday. It's you got to live it every day. That's consistency. So what are some of the things that you do consistently to keep yourself focused on your goals?
Well, that's a loaded question.
I like loaded questions.
Well, before I get into that, back to your point of living your life and practicing your faith as a dichotomy in life. I remember reading something where the guy's sitting in church thinking about playing golf, and there's a guy playing golf praising God for the beauty and the sunshine and the freedom that he has. So it's all a matter of perspective. Mm-hmm. As far as keeping goals in in line and doing all that stuff. It may sound weird to you, but I'm not a goal-oriented person. And despite the fact that I'm not a goal-oriented person, I have accomplished a lot of things in my life. I go by what feels right, and I would decide on. And in a sense, it is. In a sense, you got to decide what you want to do, so that is a goal. But I'm not your quote unquote goal-oriented person. You got to have a direction if you're going to go somewhere. Otherwise, you'll end up nowhere or wherever you end up. So I do have goals, and I do keep focused. I am very much tuned into my intuition. My intuition has guided me over my lifetime. And it is, again, I would go back to my spiritual principles. There is one of my guiding principles is God doesn't burden a soul more than it can bear. So if I wanted to do something, that's God's way of saying, hey, I'll give you whatever you want to go with it. Because if it wasn't for the fact that I can handle it, it wouldn't have been planted in my head in the first place. Wallace Wattles is one of my favorite authors, and he says a desire to do something is proof that you have within you the power which can do it.
Yeah, well, that's pretty powerful because you just have to figure out the right way. I was just having that conversation with my daughter today. She was struggling with something, and I go, okay, but you could do it. And, just had to help her refocus. And it's powerful because if you come up with the thoughts, it's all about the action. And that's, you just have to figure out. And if you're not good at doing whatever you want to do, you want to play Major League Baseball, yes, you could do that. You have to work really hard to do that. It's not just the God-given talent. Some of it is talent, but some of it is you got to take those steps to do that.
Yep. When it is God-given talent, it's your gift, and it's up to you what you do with that. You can take that gift and make the world a better place, or you can take that gift and squander it. But if you don't have, quote unquote, natural talent to do something, your gift is to show the world that with persistence and love and passion for doing something and sticking to it and putting in the work and having fun, you can achieve it. And I believe that having fun is more important than anything else. When you're having fun, it's not hard work.
Right.
It's just having fun. To the rest of the world, it may seem like it's hard work, that you're putting in so much work, and they put in so much hard work. No, they didn't. They were just having fun.
Yeah, you gotta. That's why you have to find something that you're passionate about, and see how you can make money or be successful doing that. Successful doesn't have to be about money. It has to be about enjoying what you're doing. Like I know you enjoy your podcast. I mean, you might not get the riches, but it fills a need, and it fills the ability to really get you exactly what you need. And we need more of that. We need to do more of that and find. So what are some other things that you do besides your podcast? And of course, talk about your podcast.
Well, I have been living what I call a freedom lifestyle for the last 10, 12 years. And the way I define freedom lifestyle is the ability to arrange your work in a way that it is part of your life, not the focus of your life. The way we are taught in the Western world, your first and foremost important or first and foremost thing to do in life is to get a job and make money. And everything else has to work around that. Freedom lifestyle is where you take what you want and how you want to live and put that in the circle center, and then work everything around that, including your work. So, 12 years ago, I got, well, now it's 14 years now. The last 2 years just kind of seemed like didn't exist. But back in 2008, after a second time failure in a big, major business, I was broke, had no money, and faced with a situation of either go back to work for somebody else, which I swear I'm never gonna do, and find something else. So I ended up reinventing myself as a balloon twister, and I made balloon animals for the kids, and it was fun. And I was able to schedule my own time whenever I found places that needed that would allow me to go play in the restaurants, and people would pay me to hand out balloons to their kids. And what I found interesting was not only was I getting paid for entertaining the kids, I was also getting paid to promote my business because I was handing out my business cards, and then people were hiring me to go to parties, birthday parties and events. And so it was a wonderful way of promoting my business and getting paid at the same time. Mm-hmm. And so that was the beginning of my freedom lifestyle. And then when my kids went off to college, I decided to become a nomad and moved into my van and built a makeshift bed, put all my belongings under the bed, and I hit the road. And for 10 years, I traveled around the country, visiting every one of the lower 48 states, handing out balloons, because when I gave away the balloons, people gave away money, and it worked wonderful. So that in a nutshell. These days, I coach people on how to take their gifts and turn it into a business so that they can be happy because their work and their gifts are one and the same.
We'll be back in a moment.
Hi there, I'm Lainey.
And I'm Estella. And we're interrupting this podcast because we have a question for this audience.
Do you or someone you know live with a disability or a chronic condition?
If yes, you're not alone. 1 in 5 people in the U.S. do.
We're the hosts of the Embrace It podcast, where we share tips, tools, and inspiration for everyday living with all types of disabilities.
Our interviews with badass disability advocates will boost your confidence in all areas of life, including travel, fashion, relationships, career, and more.
So walk or roll on over to your favorite podcast player and subscribe to Embrace It with Lainey and Estella.
And now back to the show you were listening to. Another great show produced by Launchpad 516 Studios.
You're listening to Peace, Love, and Bring It Back with me, Uncle Dave Chametzky. So how is it that let's talk about some of your gifts. Do you have a favorite gift? Do you have something that like your go-to? Like I know I have a go-to. I use a lot of different resources, and I definitely have a go-to, my reset button. How about yourself?
Well, my go-to resource is service. I believe that when you serve the world, mm-hmm. It's a way of like I said, I gave away balloons and people gave away money. So when you give away your gifts, and my gift is service, making people, helping people in what they want, and understanding that is a challenge. It's something that I am beginning to see. For a long time, I was me focused. How am I going, show how good I am and how great my life is? And I remember my first paid speaking gig. I was so full of myself, nobody wanted to talk to me after the speech, and they wouldn't even leaving alone recommending me. They didn't even want to talk to me about it. But that was 15 years ago. Over the years, I learned that when you take the focus off yourself and focus on the people that you're trying to help and find out what it is that they need that you have to offer them, and then just give it to them. Don't worry about whether you get paid for or not. Again, going back to my spiritual principles, God pays the highest interest on your investments.
Exactly. You know, and that's great. You know, I love that. I'm gonna steal that. Because it really is true. That was one of the things that I learned. You know, I had a nickname growing up. We were talking about high school, Kid Ego. And when I went through my biggest troubles, I didn't realize how much of my ego was being fed for different parts of my life. But once I allowed Kid Ego to die, and don't get me wrong, Kid Ego is still alive, but I know now my focus is all on service. As Muhammad Ali says, you know, service is the price we pay for living on earth. Yes. You know, that's why, and it's not about me. You know, that's why when they go, well, how do you help people? I go, I help people by giving them resources, allowing them to know resources, but it's them. I could be the best. You could go to Sigmund Freud and do all the changes, but it's only because he had the knowledge to give you, to guide you. If you don't want to do it, resistance is one of the biggest things that we have to overcome. That's the biggest obstacle that most of us have to overcome. Now, before, I just want to ask you, because you're talking about your twist animals. What's your favorite twist animal?
Well, you know, it's when I did this, I looked at it as more of a skill than a passion. So for me, it was not so much of an art; it was a craft. And my favorite was a butterfly that I twisted. That was the first one that I created on my own, so to speak. And I don't want to say I created it on my own. It was given to me. It was a gift. And I that's how I look at it. God gives you gifts and you give them away and make the world a better place. And butterfly was a common thing that people asked for. The children, you know, love butterflies. And the butterfly that I had learned was hard, cumbersome, and it didn't really look like a butterfly. And there was one day somebody asked for 2 hearts, and they wanted the hearts to put together. And I asked them, you know, I was trying to put it together the way I usually. I said, do you want them interlocking, or, you know, I was trying to figure out how she wanted it put together. And she said, no, just put them both side by side and combine them. So I did that, and all of a sudden I had 2 hearts like that. And I go, oh, there's my butterfly. So I just made a little changes, put a little antenna, and the wings became, or the hearts became the wings. And as I moved forward, I learned to change it a little bit so it actually looks like a butterfly when you get done with it.
See, you just needed to put a little heart into it, and that was it. You know, yeah, we always talk about heart here, but I also talk about the butterfly. I mean, just you know, I know you talk about the twist animal, but the butterfly, you know, it's an ugly process going from the caterpillar to the cocoon, where the metamorphosis that eventually turns into the butterfly and the beautiful things. And you know, we use that metaphor a lot, as well as the phoenix. So, what are some things that you would rose out of in the phoenix metaphor, or how have you grown from that teenage boy who first started accepting that maybe he was a weirdo to the person who you are now? I'm sure there's been lots of growth.
Oh gosh, yes. Over the years, I have I have always been curious type. I was fascinated with nature. I was fascinated with how things work, and so over the years, 2 things that guided my career path, so to speak. One was something interesting to do, and the other one was it's got to work around who I am, or I wasn't interested in the work. So I remember, particularly remember interviewing for a job as a restaurant manager, and the guy who was interviewing me asked me, where have I worked? And I jokingly said, ask me where I have and there'll be a shorter list. So, that's how I always has been for me is I never stayed at a job too long because plain and simple, it's just, it was too restrictive and it was too much of a do it my way or don't do it. And I would say, okay, so I'm going to go do something else because I see a better way of doing it. If you're not interested in it, that's your problem, not mine. I'll go figure out something else. So that's how my life has progressed over the years. I've done different things. I have made a list of, part of what I do as a coach for Freedom Lifestyle is I get people to write down the different things that they have done in their life, whether for work or non-work related. But you make separate lists of your work experience, your non-work experience, and then things that you do because you like it. So your career experiences, your volunteer experiences, and your passion experiences. When I did that exercise for myself, I had 51 things that I have done in my life to get paid.
Yep, that's incredible. Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, and I was amazed with that. And some of them I only did it for one day, and some of them I did it for a long time.
Okay, and one of those things, I know also, we're also Toastmasters. You were like an area governor or king or something like that. But it is really following your passions, and and that's one of those things is once you find, and as we say in Toastmasters, everything you do can be turned into a story. That's part of that gratitude. If you really think about it,
yes.
That's how it all gets turned into something else. And so what are some of the passions that you are still looking to follow? Because we should always keep growing as our life goes on.
Well, one of the things that you mentioned Toastmasters, and the way I got into Toastmasters was that I wanted to become a paid speaker, a professional speaker. And I bought a book, which unfortunately is no longer in print. The book was called Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is, How to Make a Living in the Public Speaking. And that book, it was a small paperback book full of good information. And one of the things that they talked about in that book was to join Toastmasters to gain experience and network with other speakers. And so I joined Toastmasters, but when I joined Toastmasters, I had been speaking in public for 35 years. I was 12 years old when my teacher volunteered me to participate in a speech contest I was in 7th grade, and my first speech was in front of 500 schoolmates. And so from the very beginning, the public fear of public speaking went out the window because my first speech was 500 people. I was nervous. I wish I had saved that picture. I was fiddling with my shorts while I was speaking.
Yeah,
that's how nervous I was. But so yeah, I had been speaking, and I spoke within our religious community for almost 20 years, travel around the country, giving speeches at different congregations, as large as 3,000 plus and as little as 8 people. It doesn't matter to me how many people that I'm speaking to. So speaking is one of those things that I'm really passionate about. I've got to a point where I have maybe stop growing in terms of speaking because I'm so comfortable speaking off the cuff, and that's the best way I like to do it. The way I was inspired to get into speaking, especially in the inspirational
Hmm.
spiritual arena, was something that a speaker that I was listening to said that the way the system that he follows is that he said that he knew that the community knew him as a speaker, and so when he went to visit families and he would go to the community center uh, for prayers and stuff, and the head would look at him and say, "Hey, since you're here, why don't you give us a sermon or a speech or whatever you want to call it? Why don't you speak to the congregation for a few minutes?" And he said, I hated those things because I wasn't prepared. Till one day it dawned on him. He said, I was asked to do it. I wasn't prepared at all, and the guy was insistent that I do it. Wouldn't take no for an answer. So I said, God, please help me. Uh, Speak for me because I don't know what I'm going to say. And he got up and he delivered his speech, and he got a lot of people came up to him and thanked him because it was something that they needed to hear. And so that became my guiding principle, and that's what I did. And over the years, I've found the same results. So my principle is I'll just get up and say a little prayer before getting up, and I say, "Hey, it's in your hands. I'm just going to be the mouthpiece. You do the talking."
I hear you, and because you never know who's going to hear your message. That's the power of podcasting and getting up to speak in an audience. There could be five
Yes.
people in the room, but, I once heard this saying, and I've been using it a lot lately. God will bring us to the right place, and it can't be God, right? And what I mean by, if God walked up to you and was like, "Rasheed, this is what you have to do," you might not believe it because you'd be like, "Oh my God, I don't deserve it," and all that imposter syndrome. But if they bring somebody like me to talk to you, where God's talking through me, or God talks to you through whoever needs to hear it, we'll believe it a little bit differently. And
Yes.
the message really is that God shows up in the strangest places, and to really listen to the messages that other people give you as well. It's once we listen to that, that's God's way of saying, "I'm staying anonymous. I'm staying out of this, but here's the message you need to have."
Right. I remember 2 years ago, when I was last year actually, I was competing at Toastmaster speech contest, and I went to a club to practice my speech and get some feedback so I can improve on that. And when I got done, in Toastmasters, we have what we call love notes, which is basically people give you little notes at the end of your speech to uh, provide feedback of what they thought and what you can do better. And one of the notes that I got, and I still have it somewhere over here on my messy desk, this lady said, "I don't know if the story you told me if it was a true story, but I know everything happens for a reason, and you were here today for me."
Exactly.
And that was, that's a humbling experience. That
It's tremendously humbling. That was what happened on my TEDx. I did my TEDx, and it was about mental health. And the first time I really spoke publicly about my suicide attempt, and I was like, okay, it was a big, it was a heavy speech. Because of the that's what. The morning I woke up and I was like, I've told people about it, but this is the first time you're telling the world to it, and you wanted to put the power behind it. And it was a little daunting for me. But the magic part, and that's where I'm going, is that 9 people reached out to me who I didn't know, and they found ways to reach out to me, and they needed to hear that message. It was people who I didn't know. It was stories that you didn't know. And that's really powerful when somebody reaches out to hear your message, and that's again, to me, the message of the universe.
Yes.
It's that magic piece.
Two things I wanted to say at this point. One is I remember a story from Dr. Wayne Dyer. He was on a radio show talking about the stuff that he talked about earlier in his career. And somebody called in to thank him because this person said that he was sitting at the riverbank in his car. Oh, excuse me. Getting ready to drive into the river in an attempt to kill himself. And he decided to hold on and listen to the radio before he drove the car into the river. And listening to the radio, he said he changed his perspective. He changed his mind about killing himself, and he's going to go back and take responsibility and do. So, same thing that you were talking about at that point. It's just God plays anonymously in a way. The second thing that I wanted to talk about when you mentioned the TED Talk, we have a mutual friend, Michael Davis.
Yes, he's going to. I've recorded his episode, and he'll come on a little bit before you do. But he's an amazing gentleman.
Right. So it was. I was talking to him last week. He is a TED Talk coach.
Yep.
And so I was talking to him about my interest in doing a TED Talk, and he keeps telling me, "Yes, you have a TED Talk. Yes, you have a TED Talk." So I finally talked to him, and I was mentioning you and your TED Talk, and he goes, "I know that guy." Small world.
Well, that's what it is. So, we're all connected, and you just have to.
Absolutely.
Again, there's no way that we would meet without some social media, but it's just God's way of saying, "Hey, you guys need to connect," and whatever message you're going to put out, that's going to be needed for somebody, and that's really love. So, I as we're wrapping up this episode, do you have any final seeds of knowledge that you'd like to share with us today?
Well, the best thing that I can tell you, and then I posted this a couple of days ago on Facebook, very simple, is make a commitment, take the first step, look for miracles, take the next step, watch the miracles, and enjoy your life.
That's awesome, and that's exactly what we should just keep doing. Keep stepping forward, and there's miracles all around us. Thank you so much, Rasheed.
Thanks.
I appreciate you for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, and everybody, take exactly what Rasheed had said and take those steps. Find those peace and love in your life, and when you're bringing a bat, swing for the sweet spot and knock it out of the park. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks. I'm really glad that you're enjoying our show. Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat is brought to you by Launchpad 516 Studios. Executive produced by David Chametzky and George Andriopoulos. Music selections by James Grant, Zach Nelson, and James Gaither, and licensed through Storyblock. Sound effects and sponsorship music licensed through Epidemic Sound. Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat is hosted with Podbean. Subscribe to our show wherever podcasts are available. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and share with all of your friends. Follow us on Facebook at Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat. Follow me, Uncle Dave Chametzky, on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Clubhouse. You can find all those links and more info at davidchametzky.com. For show ideas, feedback, guest inquiries, or just to chat, reach out to me at peacelovebringabat@gmail.com. For sponsorship and media inquiries, reach out to peacelovebringabat@lp516.com. Make sure to follow all the great podcasts produced by Launchpad 516 Studios. Today's journey has come to a close, my friends. I hope the seeds of peace and love continue to grow for each one of you. Remember that peace and love surrounds you and will assist you to rise again. But don't forget to bring it back for what you believe in. Namaste.